I used to go to Chuck E. Cheese sometimes when I was a kid, and I always enjoyed it. I would play the arcade games and eat the pizza that they had, which was really good. Several of my friends had birthday parties there, and I had one once as well. But my scariest experience happened one time when I went there with my best friend David. I was 7 years old, but I remember it like it was last week. I just remember that we were there on, I believe, a Saturday morning. We got a bunch of coins and started playing all the arcade games. David's mom took us there, and I was going to David's house to hang out afterwards. After playing arcade games and winning tickets for a while, I remember that I was standing not too far away from the playground area. There was a spot that was basically like a play place that you would see at a McDonald's or Burger King. It was a slide with some monkey bars and tunnels and stuff that you could crawl through. I glanced over and I saw a kid looking through the window of one of the elevated tunnels leading to a slide. He was just staring at me really intensely. The kid was maybe a couple of years older than me, and I didn't recognize him. I even looked around wondering if he was staring at me or somebody else, but he was definitely staring right at me, and it was really weird. I looked away and then I moved to another area out of view of the kid. After that, I pretty much forgot about it and moved on to some other game. Maybe like an hour later though, I was still in the arcade with David. I remember that I noticed the kid that was staring at me again. He was staring at me once more with the wide eyes and intense stare. I was sure that he was trying to scare me or prank me and was joking around, but it was still really weird. He was standing really far away this time and basically on the complete other end of the arcade. Once more, I decided to just walk away. I went to another area and played a different game there. I thought the kid was pretty strange that was staring at me, but I just did my best to forget about it. And pretty quickly, I was able to. We stayed at the Chuck E. Cheese for maybe another hour or two, I'm not sure exactly. Then David's mom took us back to David's house, which was not that far away from the Chuck E. Cheese. When we got back, David and I mostly hung out in his living room. I'm pretty sure that we just played video games and some other stuff around the house. The next thing I really remember though was at nighttime. My mom was going to come and pick me up pretty soon, but in the meantime, I was in the living room with David, which was at the front of the house. I remember that I looked out of David's front window into the street. By now, it was dark out, and I saw what appeared to be the same kid from Chuck E. Cheese standing in the street. He was staring at me once again with wide eyes like before. It was the creepiest thing I had ever seen. David saw him as well, and we both quickly covered the windows with the shades. After that, we didn't look back out of the windows until my mom was there. When I left, I did not see the kid anymore, so he must have gone. I remember telling my mom about it, but she didn't seem too concerned. I think she thought I was exaggerating, or she just didn't think it was that weird. But I still think it was really weird to this day. I'm not sure if the kid was one of David's neighbors. David didn't seem to recognize him. I guess it's still possible though, and to me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Overall, I still don't know why the kid would stare at me like that, especially to stand out in the street at night. It was very strange. Luckily, I never saw that kid again after that. Many years ago, I used to work at a Chuck E. Cheese. This was by far the craziest thing to ever happen. I worked there from the time I was 16 to the time I was 18, and it was a decent job. Over the years, I did a little bit of everything there. One time though, towards the end of my time working there, it was a pretty quiet night. We were closing soon, and there were a few people here and there. As things continued to quiet down even more, I was getting ready to start cleaning things and close up. That's when out of nowhere, I saw this man come out from the hallway that led to the back area. This was clearly for employees only, and this man was not an employee. Right away, I also realized that he was wearing the head to the Chuck E. Cheese mascot. We kept it in a back room where sometimes an employee would dress up as the rat for birthday parties or whatever. Nobody was supposed to be doing that today though. This guy seemed to have snuck into the back and put it on. He started very quickly walking around the arcade area. Even though there were not that many people there, he was still getting a big reaction out of those that were. Another employee and I tried to go over to him and get him to stop. As we approached him, he quickly walked away and we followed. But before we could catch up with him, he then turned and ran back towards the back room. He was sprinting, and so he was able to mostly get away from us. By the time I arrived at the back hallway, I couldn't find the man. However, I did find the Chuck E. Cheese mascot head laying on the ground in front of the rear exit door. I figured the man had left out the back door, and thankfully he didn't steal the rat head. I picked it up and brought it back to the room where we stored it. It was a pretty crazy situation, but I was just glad that the man was gone and everything seemed fine. So at that point, I went back to work for the final 30 minutes or so that we were open. For the next short period of time, things resumed like normal. More people left and it became quieter and quieter. Finally, closing time came, and another one of my coworkers left. Now it was just me and another coworker. I went over and made sure that the place was empty, which it was, and then I went over and locked the doors. After that, I headed to the back room to clock out. When I arrived back there, though, I passed by the room where we kept the rat costume. I thought that I saw movement out of the corner of my eye when passing by it. I assumed it was probably one of my coworkers and kept walking, but immediately I just had a bad feeling. Maybe it was because of the guy from earlier, but I felt like I should check and make sure. So I backed up and then went to the doorway of the room. I looked inside and saw the same man was there. He was crouched down half behind a table and looking right at me, wearing the rat head once again. It was one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. I told the man to stop, and when I did, he got up and then quickly started running in my direction. I moved back, not knowing what he was doing. The man then ran right past me and back out towards the arcade. I walked back over there, nervous of what the man could do. He started running around the entire place. I yelled at him and threatened to call the police, but it seemed to have no effect on him. I had one other coworker there with me who seemed stunned at what was going on. The man ran around for probably 2 or 3 minutes. Then he finally went to the front door, opened it up, and ran out, taking the rat head with him. We were relieved that he was gone. After that, we were able to go home a short time later. I remember that several days after that, the rat head part of the costume was found a few blocks away in an alley. I never saw the man again. I remember one time when I was a kid, I went to a birthday party at a Chuck E. Cheese. It was for one of my friends, Jaden. We weren't best friends or anything, but in the same friend group. On the day of the party, I was dropped off at the local Chuck E. Cheese by my parents. There were maybe 10 or 12 kids there total at the party. A few of the other children's parents were staying at the party the entire time, and they sat at the tables. After presents and some pizza, us kids were free to roam around the place and do what we wanted. We each got a bunch of coins to play the games with. Most of the kids split up, and I remember that I played countless arcade games over the next hour or so. Then, for a while, I was playing skee-ball by myself in the corner. That was probably my favorite game, and there wasn't really anybody else that was close to me. That was when I remember being approached by a woman. She called me by my name and said that we were leaving. Immediately, I assumed her to be one of the kids' parents. I figured she was helping out with the party and that we were leaving. So I said okay, and then she told me to follow her, so I did. We walked through the arcade, and then went towards the front of the Chuck E. Cheese. The next thing I knew, we were walking right out the front doors. Now, I didn't see any other kids or parents. I'm not really sure why, but at the time, I just didn't think much of it. We walked outside and into the parking lot out front. As we started to walk towards the vehicles, I still wasn't thinking much of it. I guess I figured maybe everyone else had already left the Chuck E. Cheese. Or maybe I was just not thinking of possible scenarios because I was a little kid. Either way, we had made it quite a ways into the parking lot when I suddenly heard voices yelling from back near the Chuck E. Cheese. I looked back and saw some other parents. They were yelling stuff like, "Where are you going?" and "Come back." At first, I was just really confused and didn't know what they were yelling about. But that's when the woman that I was with grabbed me by the arm forcefully. She then started pulling me along with her, and that's when I realized something was up. I heard more shouting, and my instincts finally kicked in that I should get away from this woman. As she pulled me along by the arm, I suddenly tugged away from her. To that point, I hadn't tried to get away, so I was able to take her by surprise, and she let go. At that point, I turned around and ran back towards the Chuck E. Cheese. Several other parents were already running towards me. I ran to them and then looked back and saw the woman now running to a car, and she quickly got inside. The car drove away really fast, and I remember the tires squealing as it did. Then we went back inside the Chuck E. Cheese. I remember that the police were called, and they arrived a while later. My parents came to the Chuck E. Cheese and picked me up as well. That pretty much ended the party, but I don't really remember anything else beyond that. I'm not sure if the woman was ever located and caught or what. That's the craziest experience from my childhood though. It's crazy to think of how close I came to being kidnapped. I'm grateful to the other parents who noticed me leaving and came out to stop it.